Hi friends, I'm getting ready to add another recipe, maybe in my recipe book, and I wanted to do something with citrus and oranges. Our oranges are coming around right now, so I'm just going to draw and paint some little oranges. I wanted to share with you, so this is the Arrtx 72 color watercolor pencils. I typically use a pencil to draw, kind of sketch out my paintings, but I know some of you have asked about you don't like those pencil lines. So there's a couple things you can do. What I will do is once I draw it out, I just roll over it with a kneaded eraser, and it really lightens the color, the pencil. The other thing you can do is you can always use a watercolor pencil, and that's what I'm going to do. And what happens is when you add the wet paint, it's going to kind of dissolve. You might have a little bit of a line, but it won't look like what a pencil does. So I'm just going to draw out my orange here, and that way when I add my watercolors, it will somewhat dissolve or at least blend in. So there's my oranges. I'm then going to use, let's see, let's get a green here. So many different green. They have this set, it's the 72 color, and they really did a good job with providing all the right colors in there. So this is kind of an olive green. I think I'm going to go for the lighter green. Oop. Let's get that back in there. And just sketch in a little bit where I might want some leaves to be. Now again, this won't dissolve completely, but it will at least blend in somewhat. I like the pencil lines, so that doesn't bother me, but I know a lot of you would prefer not to have those pencil lines. And then let's see, let's do a brown for the, I'm going to see what color that is. That's a little bit of like a brick brown. I want more of an earthy brown. Yeah, like that. So this is, they don't have the color on here, AW650, but that's what I'm going to use. There we go. And here's another stem. So just to give me a little bit of guidelines here. So I basically have that drawn out now with my pencils. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my colors. I'm basically going to use, this is like a cad orange. It's a little bit warmer because it does lean towards the reds, the sun colors, so that's a little bit warmer. I'll probably use some cad yellow, which to me also leans towards the red. As you can see, it really blends well with those reds, but I do want to use some cooler tree greens, yellow greens. The hooker's green and olive green would be a little bit warmer, and I may add some of those in for some shadowy type colors. And I'll probably also use, let's see, let's use our, I want a little bit oranger red. So I think the red, this is scarlet. I really like that color. It is definitely a little bit warmer, and I've got it right here, so that I'll probably touch in here. Okay, what I'm going to do first is just pick up a tiny bit of my orange, and again I'm using kind of my cad orange, orangey yellow, and I'm just going to give this a glaze, but I want to add quite a bit of water here. There we go. So you can maybe already see that that outline. You can't really pick it up right now, which is really great. And I might add in just a little bit of my cad yellow. Not too much because that's quite bright, but I do want to get a good mix here of that. There we go. And let's see. I think I will leave that right now. Let's move on to this one, which I'm going to do kind of the same thing. So using the side of my brush to get quite a thick brush stroke. And then I will soften all these lines with a damp brush. Kind of do the same here. I like my lines very soft. And then I think I'm going to go in with a, oh, let's see, let's use maybe a cad red or a vermilion, which is a real orangey red. And just tap in over here, maybe up in there. This is wet and wet, just to give it a little bit of contrast and interest. So at this point now, you really can't even see those pencil lines, which is nice. And then this one under here, I'm going to go just a little bit warmer. So I'll add in a tiny bit more of that vermilion or cad red. And you know what, actually, let's add that in here too before that dries too much. Be a little careful with that vermilion or cad red. It can be a tiny bit strong. Now this already started to dry, so I will go in and rinse my brush. Just go up against that line and soften it like that. There we go. I really wanted the bottom of that orange to be a little bit darker, and then maybe tap in right under the stem. I'm also leaving a lot of white space in there, if you notice. That just to me is so interesting. I think I will go with a little bit more vermilion. Let's see what that color is. That's a little bit pinker. Okay, let's leave that how it is. I'm going to go in and pick up my sap green, some tree green maybe, and it's about 50-50. Maybe just a tad bit of the olive green in there, just to warm it a bit. I've got about 50 paint, 50 water, and I'm going to do the point press for my leaf there. And then we'll do another one here, point press. I really don't have any problem as well if this kind of mixes and mingles with my wet paint on my orange. Now, while that's wet, I'm going to go in and kind of like I do with my flowers, I add in just a touch of my fruit color to my leaves, because I feel like it brings just a little bit of coherency between the fruit or the flowers and the leaves. So I kind of like that look. There you go. And then let's go into this one here. So I'll pick up some more of that pink paint, point press, open up that belly, and we've got another leaf there. Add in just a tiny bit of that orange here, just a little bit. And it just really brings together all of this. We've got another leaf here. We'll go ahead and do that again, point press, adding in a little bit of our, here's a green here. It looks like I had already mixed. As you can see, I typically go for the same greens, point press, point press, and I left a bit of white space there. point press, just simple leaves. I'm going to add in a tiny bit of maybe some brown. I'm going for the burnt sienna. I also like Van Dyke brown, just to warm it up a bit. I love adding brown to my leaves. There we go. Just feels so earthy. And actually, the orange kind of does that too. Going into my little stems, just with the tip of my brush. So I'm anchoring my hand. I hold close up to the ferrule, so I have a little bit more control, and pick up some of that brown, tap my brush off, point, and go in there. So this is kind of starting to come along. Look how pretty. I'm going to do my orange on the bottom here. So I'll pick up some of that cad yellow, a little bit of that vermilion, and let's just mix it here. And there we go. So I wanted this bottom one to have a little bit more shadowy look, as well as it's a little bit more in the background. So I wanted to make it a little bit lighter. This might have a shadow under there. Love those colors. Just going over this with a light, damp brush, leaving some highlight over here. Let's see here. I'm going to add in a tiny bit more orange. Just my cad orange. And another glaze. Now this is dry, so I'm going to go over that with just a light wash glaze of my cad red. So let's create that in here. About 50-50, tap off. And I'm just going to point, press, really open that up and bring it around. Look at that. Isn't that fun? And then maybe under here to just show a little bit of the shadow of that leaf. So this is just glazing. And then I'll go with a damp brush and soften that up a bit. Let's add a little bit of that orange over here. I don't necessarily want to totally mix the green and the orange, but if it bleeds a little bit, I'm fine with that. I'm going to soften that a little. So there you go. Look at these beautiful colors, and really gives you this sense of roundness. The other thing you can definitely do, remember, if you mix opposites, they are going to create a shadow effect. So I could add a shadow when this dries. I could go in, because the opposite of orange is these blues. So I could add its opposite, and it would give me a shadow effect. So I'll do that in just a second. The other thing I wanted to do is just add in maybe a little flower here. So I'm going to draw in the center. Let's see, let me find, well, let's use this green again. But aren't those so pretty? I'm going to use these in my cookbook. And then I'm going to use the guidelines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little petals. And then I'll go in there with maybe a little bit of like a light green bloom. I know the blooms on my orange and lime tree are kind of like the florals are kind of a whitish color. So I'm going to try and use a very pale color. So let's go ahead and do that. Side of my brush again. One more time here. Point press. Trying to kind of blend in that pencil guideline. And at the same time, keep this rather light. There we go. So we've got our little bloom there that kind of ties in with everything. I think what I'll do is just add the tiniest touch of orange, just to make it coherent. So I'm going to tap in while this is wet, some of this orange, and just let it add a hint to that flower. I don't even know if you can necessarily see this. Add a little bit more. There we go. And then once that dries, I'll go into the center with maybe some brown. Let's see here. Are we missing anything? I think this looks good. So I want to go in here. Now this is a little bit wet still, but I want to show you what happens when you mix the opposite. There's different ways to create a shadow down here. You could do a darker value of the color of the object, like I'm going to show you right now with the orange. I'm just going to add a very light blue. So let's grab our, let's see, which blue is that? Don't want a turquoisey blue. Let's go for, I think I'll go for, I really like cobalt blue. We could use a Prussian blue. We could use cobalt blue. I think I'm going to do the pure ultramarine. So let me grab that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Want to make sure I get the right one. 1, 2, 3. So it's this one here. Just make sure that is, there we go. So I'm going to use a very light value. And I'm going to go in here and just apply a very light shadow with that ultramarine blue. So this is a little bit wet. I would normally wait for that to dry a bit and just point, press, and up on the side. See how that created a beautiful shadow? Isn't that nice? I could do just a little tiny bit darker, not too dark. I don't want to go more than 50% pigment. And maybe this one here. I really would prefer this to be dry. Tapping off my brush a bit. So opposites can really create some beautiful, beautiful shadows. I'm going to go in here too with that blue. Point press. And quite a bit of shadow over here. And I don't want to mix it too much, because if I mix it, then I'm going to, or touch it too much, because once I start moving around a lot, it's going to start combining that bottom layer in there. I do want to just soften that line there a bit. All right, let's add some of that blue here too. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more blue. That's quite strong, so I want to lighten that up a bit, tap it off. Point press. And there you go. You've got these beautiful shadows. Now remember, watercolors will dry lighter, so that will lighten up. But look at, I really kind of made more of a point of shadows and things because I wanted you to see that. And then let's go in, and I'm going to create, if this is dry, not quite dry. So let's go to the leaves. I'm going to go in there with a little bit darker olive green and just create some fun little shadows in here. Point press and make that leaf pop out. Look at that. And then maybe this one here, point press. and it just gives it some depth there. Let's see, what can we do next? We can go in and darken some of that brown. So I'm going to go in with more of a burned brown, or a Van Dyke brown is really kind of my favorite. I love the Van Dyke brown. So just going in and laying in some shadow there for some detail. Maybe this little stem here, just barely touching in like that. And I think I'm about done except for that flower. I want to go in and just add a little bit more to that. So I'm going to pick up that yellow and some of that green again. Just mixing it on my palette. Tap off. And let's go in and kind of glaze over a few more petals. So point, press, pick up a little darker, point, press, point, press, and then I can soften those edges just with a damp brush. Go in again. Just pulling out a few petals here. Point, press. And there we go. I think I'm going to leave that one just as it is. I could go in and add a tiny bit of brown into the center, maybe mixed with some of that orange. So grabbing my brown with my orange, and I create this nice color for the center. There we go. And I think that's quite pretty. You can always lift some of those petals too. So take a dry, thirsty brush. I've washed, I've patted off, and I can go in and pick some of that out, kind of by lifting, and it just creates some more depth and interest. And I think I'm about done here. It looks like I might have missed this little area here. So there you go. I'm basically done. I feel like I want to darken in a tiny bit in there. So let me grab some of my orange and add in some of that just to the center here. There we go. Yeah. All right, everybody, I hope you give this a try. I hope it was kind of fun for you. I'm going to be coming up with some type of recipe, maybe candied orange peel, and I will be painting this in my little cookbook. I did use my Arrtx watercolor pencils. I love these. They have a real soft lead, and they're just easy to use. And that's it. All right, happy painting, everyone. So happy to have you here with me. You guys inspire me all the time to come up with some different things and just play and have fun. And I hope you enjoyed this. All right. Thank you.